Okay, on to our program. Our first speaker is founder of Bitcurrent. He's also my conference co-chair here at the Cloud Connect. He's someone who has emerged as one of our industry's prominent thought leaders around cloud computing. He's a frequent contributor to a number of publications, including our own Information Week. You might have seen some of his columns there over the last few months. He's written several books, including some recent books on web ops and then in the web monitoring space. On top of that, he actually happens to be Canadian, so he's required to be a nice guy. Even with his Canadianness, and I'm allowed to make fun of Canadians, by the way, because my wife is Canadian. Even with his Canadianness, he's not afraid to tell it like it is, and that's one of the things that people really like about Alistair. So he's here to talk about feet, knots, horses, clipboards, trash cans, and machines, the role of metaphor in technology adoption. Please join me in welcoming Alistair Croll.
Good morning, everybody. Yesterday I tried to be all clever and work all of Whitney Houston's song lyrics into my presentation, and I gave up after Didn't We Almost Have It All with Elasticity. Today all I'm just going to say is Happy Valentine's Day. Last year we ran an event in Las Vegas on Mother's Day. This year we're doing this on Valentine's Day. Clearly Canadians hate holidays. The reality is we do them on the metric date, so I don't get in trouble for being here on Imperial Valentine's Day. That's as funny as it gets, I'm afraid. My name's Alistair. You can make fun of my bad sense of humor here. And, oh, okay, one more joke. As I said to the bartender yesterday when I gave him $1, anybody know the difference between a Canadian and a canoe? Canoes tip. All right, good morning. Oh, lovely, I got no pictures. That's a good sign. This is going to go off really well. So this is a photograph of a foot. It's a Canadian foot, so it's not to scale. I can't see the picture. So a foot is a unit of measure. The international foot is actually the result of averages put together all through Europe, and they came up with an eventual size, 12 inches, but different cities had different dimensions for their feet, which gave us all kinds of problems when it came time to try and make those feet consistent and use them for commerce and trade, and eventually we settled on a standard size for a foot. And it was first used by the Sumerians. We see records of them documenting the height of a statue in about 2500 BC. And the foot is an international unit of measure today. We rely on it for lots of things. This is a building. You've got to imagine that it's a building, 1,600 feet tall. This, on the other hand, is a knot. I'm apologizing for the lack of pictures here, not sure what's going on. The standard knot is about 1.15 miles per hour, and the knot, if you haven't seen how they were actually regulated, is a spool with a rope on it with little knots on it periodically, and a boat would throw the board over the plank at the end of the knot overboard. The boat would watch the rope spool out, and you'd count how fast the knot spooled out, and that would give you an indication of measurement speed. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see photographs for the whole thing, so this may be a very dull presentation. This boat, for example, can reach 52 knots of sailing speed. It's the fastest sailboat in the world. So we use knots as a measurement of movement. This is a horse. Again, you got to imagine it's a horse. Mechanical or imperial horsepower is exactly 550 foot-pounds. It was used as a marketing device to try and explain to people who were buying the steam engine, hey, you know what, this is going to pull as much as this team of horses. But few of us spend much of our time thinking about the horse as a unit of measure. We don't take horses into the car dealership and compare them to the car we're about to buy. We just use it as shorthand for amount of movement. In fact, in Europe, it's illegal to just mention the horsepower of something without also noting its weight in, hey, look, I got a picture of it, that's awesome. Without also noting its rate of movement in other metric terms. Thank you very much, guys in the back. Good job. Next slide, please. All right, I think we're back. Let's see. There we go. So horsepower, this is a steam engine. It was originally used to define the output of steam engines. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, this is not flowing as smoothly as I'd hoped. All right, here we go. Punchline, great joke, ready? So this is a machine. A machine, next slide, please, is an antiquated unit of measure for computing based on this old idea of a computer, or at least it will soon be. This, for example, is a 50,000 machine cloud. And so when you see a unit of measure, a computer is an antiquated way of expressing a certain amount of capacity. Or rather, it soon will be, because the idea of a computer as a physical construct is very useful for a service provider that needs to order them. It's not so useful for a customer who needs to do some computing. And so we've got these metaphors, such as the computer, which are great ways for us to move into a new era. And unless you as an IT professional, unless your career is somehow, your core competency is managing machines and moving machines, anything you do operating infrastructure as a service is overhead that's distracting your business from innovating. And that's a bit of a strong statement. But I think within a couple of years, we're going to find that really you're spending most of your time managing boxes. You should be working for a service provider. There's no value in seeing how the sausage is made. Apologies to anyone who had sausage for breakfast. This is a friend of ours, James Duncan, very, very smart guy. And he is famous for saying, hey, this is a kettle. So much better with pictures, isn't it? This is the Hoover Dam. And using infrastructure as a service in the long term is like calling up the Hoover Dam and asking them to turn on the generator so you can make a cup of tea. Everything I know about cloud computing and your role as IT professionals in the cloud industry, I learned from Lego. Here's what I mean by that. You are, in your organization, a piece of Lego. What I mean by that's not an insult. I mean that you fit into a stack that turns resources into customer value. That's your job. The business takes some kind of resource and turns it into some kind of customer value, hopefully for more than the cost of that resource, and then you're profitable. So if you are, apologies for this. There we go. So your job as an IT professional, you're stuck somewhere between the boxes beneath you that you're managing, the load balancers, the switches, the routers, the firewalls, and the business users above you. Often this is a business unit IT group that needs to achieve some kind of business goal, build an application, run some kind of analysis, and so on. And if all you do as an IT professional is simply take yourself out of that picture, you are out of a job, because these two pieces need something in between. For IT to add value in an era when virtual machines can be used by self-service and the business user can directly access those machines, your role as an IT professional is to use virtualization and similar technologies like automation to make the operation of those boxes more efficient. And it's to make the business users more effective by turning what you offer them into services. So I think as we move forward this year and as we move up the stack to platforms, we're going to see a significant shift in what IT should focus on, unless you're working for a carrier or a very large service provider. What I mean by that is that you're going to need to focus below here on virtualization, which is absolutely necessary for efficiency, but you're going to need to focus up here for services, which is needed for organizational effectiveness and, quite frankly, for your continued employment. If you go and look at Amazon Web Services catalog, for example, they have roughly 26 cloud offerings. One of them, EC2, is about virtual machines. There are a couple of others that relate to the use of those virtual machines in certain configurations. But if you're an IT executive and most of your cloud strategy, especially in a private cloud world, revolves around simply having virtual machines people can get on demand, you're either going to be out of a job or working for a service provider very soon. If, however, you can take those underlying services, those underlying devices and that complexity and turn it into a set of turnkey services that allows your business to respond in a more agile fashion, develop applications more quickly, get answers more quickly, then you have added a tremendous amount of value to your career and to the company for which you work. So as you're going through this week thinking about how to deploy cloud within your organization, I want you to ask yourself, what services are you deploying that let the business unit IT department stand on the shoulders of giants? Because it is your job to transform the boxes that are below you into the devices, into the users above you, and to realize that the machine is only a metaphor for a unit of work in a cloud computing